Hi, I'm Jesse. I've got a lot of books and I really like sharing them. Today we're looking at the top 10 Marvel graphic novels. Okay, so Marvel Comics and I go way back, but oddly enough, I was actually a DC fan growing up, all through middle school, high school, college, and to today. Big DC Comics fan. I got into Marvel in 2001 with one of the books on this list, that we'll see what that is, and branched out into a bunch of other Marvel books. A lot of the books from this list are from that period, sort of a decade of 2001 to about 2011, at which point in 2011, with the series Fear Itself and the DC New 52, I became a little disillusioned with superhero comics for a while. So a lot of the Marvel that I read was from that period. I haven't read a lot of the classic Marvel, going back to the 60s, a lot of the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby stuff. Unfortunately, I haven't read a lot of that. So some of those are missing from this list, and I apologize. But we've got a lot more recent and modern stuff that I think is really accessible and really enjoyable. So starting here with number 10, and I said I don't have a lot of the old stuff, but I had to include at least one Stan Lee book on the list, and this is Silver Surfer Parable. It's from 1988, I think, and it's this great oversized book. It's with, I want to say Morpheus from The Matrix, but that's not who it is. It's Mobius, a very, very famous European artist who is known for these wild sci-fi images. And it's just really beautifully drawn, great to look at in this huge format, and explores a lot of interesting sociological and philosophical issues that Stan Lee liked to do with the Silver Surfer specifically. It's just a lot of fun to read. Stan Lee has this writing style that is definitely idiosyncratic and a creature of its time. But in this case, I think it really works well and still reads as a very up-to-date and modern book. Okay, number 9 is Vision. This one's very recent, by Tom King, who's one of my favorite writers, and I say that even as a Wally West fan. This is a book about the Vision, who we all know from the MCU now, from the movies. And this influenced some of WandaVision, the show. And this is about the Vision's attempt to live a real world as a human, live a real life as a human, and create a family of his own. And he creates a family of Vision-like robots. The Vision is a robot. And settles down in a nice suburb in Virginia and tries to live a normal life, but people start dying and things start going really wrong. And it becomes this really dark comedy, this really sort of horror-tinged story, and is really profound, really great, really good character study, and really highly recommended. Number 8 we might recognize from the movies as well. This is Winter Soldier, and this is what the movie and characters were based on. This is by Ed Brubaker, who's one of my favorite writers, and it's known for this gritty, realistic, political thriller. And this is all about Captain America finding out that there's this person, I don't know, should I spoil it? Everyone's seen the movies, but this is all about the character, the Winter Soldier, and his close connection to Captain America. After this, the character became Captain America himself. Those are great comics as well. It all ties together. It's all one long thing. But this graphic novel specifically is the original Winter Soldier story, and it's just excellent. This one is a real classic that I think would be on a lot of top 10 lists for Marvel, and it's called Marvels. It was really revolutionary when it came out. It's fully painted by Alex Ross, so it has completely different type of artwork than we're used to in superhero comics. Now it's a little more common, and Alex Ross has done a lot of stuff. But this was a really unique portrayal of superheroes because it's from the regular human perspective. So what does the person on the street see when superheroes are fighting? And this story is about a photographer and what he sees in New York City as these different famous Marvel adventures are taking place. And you see an ordinary person's view of Marvel, and it gives a completely different perspective. So, Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters, and I deliberated about what to put on the list. I actually started reading Spider-Man with Ultimate Spider-Man. That was the different version, the different universe of Spider-Man, a lot of which they incorporated into the later movies. And that's a great series, up to and including when Miles Morales took over from Peter Parker. The Miles stories are great, so I thought about including those. I thought about including Spider-Man Brand New Day series, which is very good. The Spider-Man series from J. Michael Straczynski right before that, which is great. What I settled on might be, I don't know, people might disagree with, but this is called Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. And these are like little romance manga teen comics, but they're really, really enjoyable. And if you like that genre at all, they're really fun, and they're from the perspective of Mary Jane. They are all about classic high school era Spider-Man, which is great to read, and which, when they went back to that in the movies, was so enjoyable and such classic Spider-Man fare. But it's about the friends and relationships that Peter Parker has, again, from the perspective of Mary Jane, and it's really interesting. And it's a will they, won't they love story that goes through all these issues like a soap opera. But it's really well done, it's really enjoyable, it's really fun to read, and I highly recommend that. Okay, this is a little bit similar. This is called Thor, Mighty Avenger. It's similar in that it's a little bit younger. It's suitable for younger readers, but it's just classic Thor, not a lot of continuity, not tied to a lot of the regular Marvel comics, just this separate little series of 2 books about Thor that are excellent and really well done. The art's spectacular, and the story is really enjoyable. So I mentioned one book got me into Marvel Comics in 2001, and that was this, Alias. Now, Alias was a little confusing because there was a TV show called Alias at the time. So this is Jessica Jones. This was the series all about Jessica Jones. And she's one of my favorite characters. She got me into all of Marvel Comics. I loved her show many, many years later. And she's a former superhero who is now a classic bitter private detective, and just shows her struggling with private detective-like cases, but that are tinged with superhero stories, and her struggling to get past a lot of post-traumatic stress that she has from situations that happened in her past. And it's great to see her grow as a character throughout this series. It's very well done. It's very realistic. It got me into the writing of Brian Michael Bendis, which I loved for so many years reading his Marvel stuff. And the art's spectacular. The whole series is really great. So we're all the way up to number 3, and I picked a really unconventional one for this. This is Nextwave, Agents of Hate. So this is just funny. It's just the funniest superhero comic I've ever read. It's by Warren Ellis, and Stuart Immonen is one of my favorite artists. And it's just wacky. It's just these off-the-wall, C-list superheroes that get on these crazy adventures, the weirdest things you could possibly think of. It's unfilmable. I can't imagine them ever making a movie of it. But it's got that zaniness, kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but even more wacky and ridiculous. But at the same time, functions as an adventure story with a great plot and excellent characters. And it's really, really enjoyable to read. We're down to the final 2, and these 2 should not be controversial. These are award-winning, excellent books, and the first one is Hawkeye, the classic series of Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David Aja, and it's spectacular. It sort of reestablished Hawkeye as a street-level character, as an ordinary guy put upon by the world, getting through all these horrible things that end up happening, but his will and perseverance drives him through it, even though he doesn't have superpowers. And the recent Hawkeye TV show was based 100% on this book, and was excellent as well, and really captured the spirit of it. It has Hawkeye working with Kate Bishop, who's the female Hawkeye, and the 2 of them together are great in terms of like banter and camaraderie, and the whole series is a lot of fun and really profound and meaningful and great characters. Highly recommended. And then number 1, which is really hard to lift, is Daredevil by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Mayleave. This is known as just a classic in the genre, and is the epitome, besides maybe the Frank Miller era, of Daredevil and this great story. And the whole story centers around the fact that Daredevil's identity is exposed in the press, and as a lawyer, how he fights back against that, what happens to his relationships, guest stars Elektra and Black Widow and all these other characters. And it's this dark, dark noir crime book that is so well done and so unpredictable with all these twists and turns that it's so much fun to read. I recently reread it. It's a great book, and if you're going to start anywhere on this list, start with number 1, this Daredevil. It's great. So that's all I have for now. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my choices. Comic books are usually pretty good for those types of arguments. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. That would be great. And I'll see you soon with more books. Thanks so much.